13. He was a gray man, all gray except for his polished black shoes and two scarlet diamonds in his gray satin tie that looked like the diamonds on roulette layouts. His shirt was gray and his double-breasted suit of soft, beautifully cut flannel. Seeing Carmen, he took a gray hat off, and his hair underneath it was gray and as fine as it had been sifted through gauze. His thick gray eyebrows had that indefinably sporty look. He had a long chin, nose with a hook to it, thoughtful gray eyes that had a slanted look because the fold of skin over his upper lid came down over the corner of the lid itself. He stood there politely, one hand touching the door at his back, the other holding the gray hat and flapping it gently against his thigh. He looked hard, not the hardness of the tough guy, more like the hardness of a well-weathered horseman. But he was no horseman, he was Eddie Maz. He pushed the door shut behind him and put that hand in the lap-seamed pocket of his coat and left the thumb outside to glisten in the rather dim light of the room. He smiled at Carmen. He had a nice, easy smile. She licked her lips and stared at him. The fear went out of her face. She smiled back. "Excuse the casual entrance," he said. The bell didn't seem to rouse anybody. "Is Mr. Geiger around?" I said no. We don't know just where he is. We found the door a little open. We stepped inside. He nodded and touched his long chin with the brim of his hat. "You're friends of his, of course." "Just business acquaintances. We dropped by for a book." "A book, eh?" He said that quickly and brightly, and I thought, a little slyly, as if he knew all about Geiger's books. Then he looked at Carmen again and shrugged. I moved towards the door. "We'll trot along now," I said. I took hold of her arm. She was staring at Eddie Maz. She liked him. "Any message if Geiger comes back?" Eddie Maz asked gently. "We won't bother you." "That's too bad," he said, with too much meaning. His gray eyes twinkled and then hardened as I went past him to open the door. He added in a casual tone, "The girl can dust. I'd like to talk to you a little, soldier." I let go of her arm. I gave him a blank stare. "Kid her, eh?" he said nicely. "Don't waste it. I've got two boys outside in the car that always do just what I want them to." Carmen made a sound at my side and bolted through the door. Her steps faded rapidly downhill. I hadn't seen her car, so she must have left it down below. I started to say, "What the hell?" "Oh, skip it." Eddie Maz sighed. "There's something wrong around here. I'm going to find out what it is. If you want to pick lead out of your belly, get in my way." Well, I said, "a tough guy. Only when necessary, soldier." He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was walking around the room, frowning, not paying any attention to me. I looked out above the broken pane of the front window. The door of the car showed over the hedge. Its motor idled. Eddie Maz found the purple flagon on the two gold-veined glasses on the desk. He sniffed at one of the glasses, then at the flagon. A disgusting smile wrinkled his lips. "The lousy pimp," he said tonelessly. He looked at a couple of books, grunted, went on around the desk and stood in front of the little totem pole with the camera eye. He studied it, dropped his glance to the floor in front of it. He moved the small rug with his foot, then bent swiftly, his body tense. He went down on the floor with one gray knee. The desk hid him from me partially. There was a sharp exclamation and he came up again. His arms flashed under his coat and a black Luger appeared in his hand. He held it in long brown fingers, not pointing it at me, not pointing it at anything. "Blood," he said. "Blood on the floor there, under the rug. Quite a lot of blood." "Is that so?" I said, looking interested. He slid into the chair behind the desk and hooked a mulberry-colored phone towards him and shifted the Luger to his left hand. He frowned sharply at the telephone, bringing his thick gray eyebrows close together and making a hard crease in the weathered skin at the top of his hooked nose. "I think we'll have some law," he said. I bent over and kicked at the rug where Geiger had lain. "It's old blood," I said. "Dried blood." "Just the same, we'll have some law." Why not? I said. His eyes went narrow. The veneer had flaked off them, leaving a well-dressed hard boy with a luga. He didn't like my agreeing with him. Just who the hell are you, soldier? Marlowe's the name. I'm a sleuth. Never heard of you. Who's the girl? Client. Geiger was trying to throw a loop on her with some blackmail. We came to talk it over. He wasn't here. The door being open, we walked in to wait. Or did I tell you that? Convenient, he said. The door being open when you didn't have a key. Yes. How come you had a key? Is that any of your business, soldier? I could make it my business. He smiled tightly and pushed his hat back on his gray hair. And I could make your business my business. You wouldn't like it. The pay's too small. All right, Bright Eyes, I own this house. Geiger's my tenant. Now what do you think of that? You know such lovely people. I take them as they come. They come all kinds. He glanced down at the luga, shrugged and tucked it back under his arm. Got any good ideas, soldier? Lots of them. Somebody gunned Geiger. Somebody got gunned by Geiger, who ran away. Or it was two other fellas. Or Geiger was running a cult and made blood sacrifices in front of that totem pole. Or he had chicken for dinner and liked to kill his chickens in the front parlor. The gray man scowled at me. I give up, I said. Better call your friends downtown. Don't get it, he snapped. I don't get your game here. Go ahead, call the buttons. You'll get a big reaction from it. He thought that over without moving. His lips went back against his teeth. I don't get that either, he said tightly. Maybe it just isn't your day. I know you, Mr. Mars. The Cypress Club at Las Olindas, flash gambling for flash people. The local law in your pocket and a well-greased line into L.A. In other words, protection. Geiger was in a racket that needed that too. Perhaps you spared him a little now and then, seeing he's your tenant. His mouth became a hard white grimace. Geiger was in what racket? The smut book racket. He stared at me for a long level minute. Somebody got to him, he said softly. You know something about it. He didn't show at the store today. They don't know where he is. He didn't answer the phone here. I came up to see about it. I find blood on the floor under a rug, and you and a girl here. A little weak, I said, but maybe you can sell the story to a willing buyer. You missed a little something, though. Somebody moved his books out of the store today. The nice books he rented out. He snapped his fingers sharply and said, I should have thought of that, soldier. You seem to get around. How do you figure it? I think Geiger was rubbed. I think that is his blood. The books being moved out, giving a motive for hiding the body for a while. Somebody is taking over the racket and wants a little time to organize. They can't get away with it, Eddie Mars said grimly. Who says so? You and a couple of gunmen in your car outside? This is a big town, Eddie. Some very tough people have checked in here lately. Penalty of growth. You talk too much, Eddie Mars said. He bared his teeth and whistled twice sharply. A car door slammed outside and running steps came through the hedge. Mars flicked the Luger out again and pointed at my chest. Open the door. The knob rattled and the voice called out. I didn't move. The muzzle of the Luger looked like the mouth of a 2nd Street tunnel, but I didn't move. Not being bulletproof is an idea I had to get used to. Open it yourself, Eddie. Who the hell are you to give me orders? Be nice and I might help you out. He came to his feet rigidly and moved around the end of the desk and over to the door. He opened it without taking his eyes off me. 2 men trundled into the room, reaching busily under their arms. One was an obvious pug. A good-looking, pale-faced boy with a bad nose and one ear like a club steak. The other man was slim, blonde, deadpan, with close-set eyes and no color in them. Eddie Mars said, See if this bird is wearing any iron. The blonde flicked a short-barreled gun out and stood pointing it at me. The pug sighted over flat-footed and felt my pockets with care. I turned around for him like a bored beauty modeling an evening gown. No gun, he said in a blurry voice. Find out who he is. The pug slipped a hand into my breast pocket and drew out my wallet. He flipped it open and studied its contents. Name's Philip Marlowe, Eddie. Lives at the Hobart Arms on Franklin. Private license, deputy badge and all. Seamus. He slipped the wallet back into my pocket, slapped my face lightly and turned away. Beat it, Eddie Moss said. The two gunmen went out again and closed the door. There was a sound of them getting back into the car. They started its motor and kept it idling once more. All right, talk, Eddie Moss snapped. The peaks of his eyebrows made sharp angles against his forehead. I'm not ready to give out. Killing Geiger to grab his racket would be a dumb trick, and I'm not sure if it happened that way, assuming he has been killed. But I'm sure that whoever got the books knows what's what, and I'm sure that the blonde lady at his store is scared batty about something or other. I have a guess who got the books. Who? That's the part I'm not ready to give out. I've got a client, you know. He wrinkled his nose. That? He chopped it off quickly. I expected you would know the girl, I said. Who got the books, soldier? Not ready to talk, Eddie. Why should I? He put the Luger down on the desk and slapped it with his open palm. This, he said, and I might make it worth your while. That's the spirit. Leave the gun out of it. I can always hear the sound of money. How much are you clinking at me? For doing what? What did you want done? He slapped the desk hard. Listen, soldier, I ask you a question, you ask me another. We're not getting anywhere. I want to know where Geiger is. For my own personal reasons. I didn't like his rack and I didn't protect him. I happen to own this house. I'm not so crazy about that right now. I can believe that whatever you know about all this is on the glass, or there would be a flock of Johns squeaking sole leathers around this dump. You haven't got anything to sell. My guess is you need a little protection yourself, so cough up. It was a good guess, but I wasn't going to let him know it. I lit a cigarette and blew the match out and flicked it at the glass eye of the totem pole. You're right, I said. If anything has happened to Geiger, I'll have to give what I have to the law. Which puts it in the public domain and doesn't leave me anything to sell. So with your permission, I'll just drift. His face whitened under the tan. He looked mean, fast, and tough for a moment. He made a movement to lift the gun. I added casually, by the way, how is Mrs. Moss these days? I thought for a moment I had kidded him a little too far. His hand jerked at the gun, shaking. His face was stretched out by hard muscles. Beat it, he said quite softly. I don't give a damn where you go or what you do when you get there. Only take a word of advice, soldier. Leave me out of your plans or you wish your name was Murphy and you lived in Limerick. Well, that's not so far from Clonmel, I said. I hear you had a pal came from there. He leaned down on the desk, frozen-eyed, unmoving. I bent over the door and opened it and looked back at him. His eyes had followed me, but his lean gray body had not moved. There was hate in his eyes. I went out and through the hedge and up to the hill to my car, got into it. I turned it around and drove up around the crest. Nobody shot at me. After a few blocks, I turned off, cut the motor and sat for a few moments. Nobody followed me either. I drove back into Hollywood.